My name is Stephen Kapos, and I am a child survivor of the Holocaust. I was 7 years old when the Holocaust reached my hometown, Budapest, Hungary, with the arrival of the German army, which invaded in March 1944, because although Hungary has been up to then and even beyond that an ally of Nazi Germany and joined it in the attack on the Soviet Union with army. But by that time, we are talking about 44, it became clear that the war was lost, and the Hungarian rulers and the ruling circles were trying to find a way back out of the alliance and started secret negotiations with the Allies. And of course the German intelligence got to realize that, and that's why, as an unreliable ally, Hungary was invaded. And at that time the ruler, the autocratic ruler of Hungary, Admiral Horthy, was still in power and was allowed to remain in power for a while. But with the arrival of the German troops came also the Gestapo and Eichmann with a brief to organize the deportation of Hungarian Jews. And he set to work straight away, and the German arrival in Hungary has strengthened the hands of the most extreme Hungarian fascist organizations like the Arrow Cross Party and some of their representatives who were in government, and they assisted Eichmann in the deportations quite enthusiastically, and the still nominally in power regent of Hungary, Admiral Horthy, tolerated it, just looking the other way, as did the population generally. I am part of a group in London of the Holocaust survivors and their descendants group, and we try to counteract the lies about the so-called Jewish community, which is supposed to be, according to the mass media and the government, a homogeneous group, which it isn't. And we try to make it clear that there is a substantial body of Jewish opinion which does not support Israel and is anti-Zionist. And we stand on the side of the big marches. You probably know in London we have large marches roughly once a month, and the government and again the mass media tries to claim that these marches are no-go areas for Jews and they are anti-Semitic in nature. And our presence there, and we carry placards which pronounce who we are, that we are Jewish survivors of the Holocaust and their descendants, try to undermine this lie. And we are very warmly received by the marchers, and some people are actually moved and thank us for doing what we are doing. And that is our main organizational purpose. In UK context, the young generation are against the genocide quite solidly. So there is a divide between the popular feeling and the government and the mass media. That even the BBC is quite clearly unmasked through their attitude as being anti-Palestine and pro-Israel. They're reporting their use of terminology, etc., give them away. So the young people don't listen to the BBC anymore, and also the mass media, newspapers are having a hard time. Very much so. I used to be a member of the Labour Party, until a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago now, when I was going to speak at a socialist group's Holocaust Memorial Day event, and I was going to be on a panel, and they advertised that in advance, whereupon I had a immediate contact from the official Labour Party warning me that if I went ahead talking to this group, because they were a proscribed group, I would be under disciplinary investigation, and nobody has survived such investigation in the Labour Party. So I immediately resigned, and my resignation letter went viral and had a lot of publicity. And ever since then, I became an activist outside the Labour Party for the Palestinian cause. Sir Keir Starmer is my constituency's MP, and at the last election, we had fielded an independent candidate against him, and he's done surprisingly well. His name is Andrew Feinstein, and he is an ex-ANC politician from South Africa. He headed the campaign against Starmer and managed to cut his majority by half. And I've been talking to him not long ago and said, well, what do you think will happen next? He said, I don't think Starmer will dare stand again in the same constituency because he will lose. That seems to be the Western powers taking the lead entirely from the United States. And as we know, the United States arms and supports diplomatically and in every way the genocide that is going on. In fact, they don't accept it's a genocide, but everybody knows it is. Everybody can see it. And
I don't know what
within the Labour Party, there is a Zionist group called the Jewish Labour Movement, JLM, and they pretend to represent a homogeneous Jewish community within Labour, but in fact there is a left-wing group as well called Jewish Voice for Labour, JVL, of which I am a member, but the Labour Party doesn't accept this organization, doesn't listen to it, doesn't allow it to be an affiliate of the Labour Party. So there is a selective approach, entirely supporting the Zionist cause. In fact, I am in what used to be, well, still is, a constituency for the Labour Party called Holborn and St Pancras Labour Party, and our member of Parliament is Keir Starmer, who joined us when he left his job as Director of Public Prosecution, which job was a high powered job, and he got his knighthood for it. He then left there and was open to start a political career, and he did start it at my constituency. And not only in my constituency, the constituency consists of 10 to 11 branches, and he appeared in my branch, so I got to know him through that. Well, that predates the Holocaust. He was very ambitious, clearly, then going for the job of being the MP, the Member of Parliament for that constituency. And once he got that, he had his eye on the leadership of the Labour Party, which, as we know, he managed to get by means to pretend that he was following the then popular line of Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn resigned after an electoral defeat, and Keir Starmer offered himself as the alternative leader, saying he was going to continue the Jeremy Corbyn program. And as soon as he was elected, because the majority of the Labour Party was a follower of Jeremy Corbyn, a genuine follower. In fact, they joined, many hundreds of thousands joined when he became leader, Jeremy Corbyn became leader. So he pandered to that, played up to that, and as soon as he achieved the leadership, he turned 100%.
Why do you think that he turned 100% one stage he achieved the position?
Yeah, exactly. Well, because that was always his program, we now think. That his acceptance of the Jeremy Corbyn leadership and program, and in fact he was a shadow minister. He was shadow minister for Brexit under Jeremy Corbyn. And then he was a friend of Jeremy Corbyn, so he said, which he later denied in interviews. I never was a friend. So, it was a cynical plan to grab leadership and then start a factional fight, of which I became a subject of with a warning letter. That was under under Keir Starmer. Yeah. Well, I tried to bring the message from the Holocaust, in effect. That's my role, because there are very few of us Holocaust survivors still standing up and able to speak. I am now very nearly 88 years old, and even I was only a child survivor. I was 7 years old during the Holocaust. But I still had to wear the yellow star, and I had to be in hiding, separated from my family, etc. And part of my purpose in being an activist is to counteract the intention and the practice of the Israeli government and the Zionists to use the Holocaust and the memory of the Holocaust as some kind of justification for the ongoing genocide. And I protest against that. I also protest against the ban on making any kind of comparison with the Nazi practices and what Israel is doing. I think it's a taboo that has no justification. I think we should make the comparison. History marches on. Nothing ever is 100% as it was before, but there are common elements which needs pointing out. Yeah. Well, yes, we are very aware of what goes on in Germany and in US as well, on the campuses against the students protesting, and there has been a tendency in the UK as well to follow on the same route, although we are not as far gone. That there is more of an resistance, and there hasn't yet been the kind of police brutality, for example, that we are seeing on the streets of Germany. But we are concerned that we are heading in the same direction, and one of our purposes in the protest movement is to prevent that, is to push back as much as possible. There was one occasion when quite clearly the government was, we think, unofficially leaning on the police to suppress a big demonstration, which was in January the 18th, when, contrary to previous history of the demonstrations, there were large number of arrests, and the police were bringing in all kinds of illogical, incoherent rules in order to deliver a large number of arrests, which they did on the day. And the two main organizing groups, there are several, it's a coalition organizing the demonstrations, but the two biggest groups are Stop the War Coalition and the Palestine Solidarity campaign. I'm a member of both. And sometimes, because I'm a Holocaust survivor, I've been asked to address the big meetings. And on that occasion, I was also addressing the meeting. The police banned the march. They brought out a rule in the last minute to say that where we assemble, we would have to remain static and just have a rally without march. This was the excuse given was that the route of the march would have been too close to a synagogue, which has not been a reason before, and it was an excuse and not a real practical thing. We weren't near enough, we weren't at the same time as a service, etc. So the organizers of the march, instead of a march, decided to organize a delegation carrying flowers, not marching, just quietly walking towards the BBC to lay down flowers at the BBC, protesting at their biased reportage. But the police had a cordon at one point, although when we reached it, they ushered us through. Though they had a second cordon where we were stopped. They then arrested one of the organizers of the march, called in others. This delegation was consisted of the leaders of the big sponsors, plus those who were speaking on the day. So I was in the first line, because I spoke that day, between Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, the ex-shadow Secretary of Finance, really, basically. And later on, we were all called in for police questioning under caution. And that's where we are. I mean, there has been no further action. We weren't charged. It's still under consideration, but nor has it been suspended. Yeah. Well, going back to the Holocaust, those who knew about it and remained silent acquired guilt and on the wrong side of history. Try and not repeat that. We know what goes on. It's live streamed. It is clearly a genocide, a large-scale killing of children. You cannot turn the other way, even at some slight risk or considerable risk of personal advancement. You have to stand up, be counted, and be on the right side of history, is my message. Recently, there has been a dramatic change of the rhetoric, not action, rhetoric, of the Western governments, including the United Kingdom. And we were wondering, and people are wondering, what caused this sudden change, because everything was visible enough for a long time. But there was a report delivered at the United Nations which warned that due to the siege and the starvation in Gaza, there was a serious possibility of 14,000 children dying within days or within a week. And that, I think, set off an absolute panic in the Western governments, because they realized their obvious guilt if that were to happen. It was not survivable. And suddenly, at least the rhetoric changed. We're waiting for the action. The rhetoric is already in place, not the action. They're still supplying arms.